And, reality TV show also teaches you that being fetishized is a good thing as a Black woman, that being fetishized as a dark-skinned woman is the closest thing you're going to ever have to love. Fetishization feels like love when you don't know what love feels like. These are the ways that people fail Black women. Like, I've seen reality TV shows where literally the men are actively lying about their life, saying that they do something that they don't do, which could easily be checked if you had people who vetted, but you don't vet for Black women. You set them up to be humiliated. That is the humiliation ritual. You want Black women to be embarrassed publicly so that it teaches you to even feel foolish for thinking that you could be loved in any other way than what you see.
Sometimes it don't make no sense. Does it really have to? There is nothing I can say.
Hi, welcome to Mayowa's World. Hi, y'all. Welcome to Mayowa's World. My name is Mayowa. And on my platform, I talk about colorism, featureism, texturism. Today, we're going to be talking about the humiliation ritual for women, known as reality TV. So I wrote in my YouTube community section asking what topic y'all wanted me to talk about. People wanted me to talk about reality television and how it affects Black women's mental health. So that's something that I wanted to speak about, and I'm going to use Love Island as an example. So on Love Island, there was a couple called Janae and Kenny, and they have been together for about a year, and Janae recently broke up with Kenny because she said that she experienced racism from Kenny, that she found something in his phone that is implying that he is racist towards Black women. In Love Island, Janae is like a really likable person. She's very funny and very bubbly and a really successful girl. And during the show, the first person who she matched with was actually a dark-skinned man who was problematic, and she deeped that and then moved on to fall in love with this raggedy white man who didn't really like her. And then Kenny came in, and Kenny and her hit it off for the most part. So then they've had like a relationship for a year, and they're a very public couple that people like to see. So the fact that Janae has been sleeping with an actual demon dressed in human clothes is really wild, but it's also not that surprising. To think that she's laying down with somebody who is racist, I can only imagine how that affects her and what she is going through. But to be honest, a lot of reality television show feels like I'm watching a horror film where I know that the Black person isn't going to live, but I'm just watching because I'm hoping that they do get to live, but they don't. And I think that there's really a parallel to be drawn between reality television shows and horror films, because if you look at who mainly writes horror films, it's white men. And if you look at who's mainly behind the production team of Love Island, it's white men. Like, I think they posted a picture of what their production team looked like or who was working for Love Island. They had one Black girl and she was tucked in the back. We can kind of guess that when white men are the ones writing a show, it's not going to favor Black women. I feel like for a lot of women dating, it's honestly like walking in like a booby trap where it's like you don't know if you step on something, your leg is going to get grabbed up. And like it just feels really, really treacherous and unsafe. And I'm sure that the way that it impacts your body with like fear and stress and anger and sadness, I bet you if someone was to do a study between that and how it affects in horror films, it's going to be very similar. Because I think that it's just like you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what's coming next. You don't know who's the bad guy, who's the good guy. You're trying to figure out with everybody else. The issue to me with heteronormative dating standards is that romantic love is always going to be seen as the most important thing that you have to offer. If you're a man and you're successful, you can be a not great dad or a not great partner. And as long as you're good at your job, good at your business, or good at how you're publicly perceived, people don't really care about your romantic life or how you parent. But when you're a woman, your worth is going to be forefront with who you're dating. It is almost like this. It is seen as like the most important thing, and oftentimes it trumps the work that you offer. So reality TV shows like Love Island or anything that's centering around dating creates a hierarchy where we feel like romantic love is the most important kind of love to get. It is where you as a woman feels the most desirable. And the people who often get failed the most at dating shows are going to be women, right? And then if we're going to be even honest with that, it's going to be Black women. when you watch a lot of reality TV shows and you see the messaging that they want Black women to have, essentially they want Black women to know that you should be grateful for any scraps that you get. And they often pair up Black women with that same mentality. So with this feeling of you should be grateful for any scraps that you get, it also is simultaneously telling you that you're not really worth much. You're the weakest link. Very similarly to how in a horror film, the Black person is always the first to be unalived, you are the weakest link when it comes to romantic love. And if we can see that romantic love is seen as the hierarchy, the pinnacleness of womanhood, Black women will fall at the very bottom, and then dark-skinned women will fall even farther down the totem pole. Which is also why a lot of times dating shows don't show fat women, don't show trans women, don't show disabled people, even though we live amongst these people all the time, because we're still wanting to compete in a cis hetero patriarchy of who is seen as the most important, which is going to be a white man and a white woman, and everybody else is seen as subsidiary or secondary to those love dynamics. So it's interesting that we are conditioned and programmed to feel like Black women are unlovable, because simultaneously everybody else elevates off of Black women. So Black women are the anchor to help people's career. Black women make a lot of people money. Black women make a lot of TV shows money. If we're going to be completely honest, a lot of the fan base that came from Love Island this season is actually off the backs of Serena and Cordell. Because when people saw two Black people winning, two dark-skinned people winning, people started to run to be like, oh, I want to watch the show too. So Black women have always been able to be at the forefront of making money, but a lot of times that money does not go back to Black women. Let's be honest, nobody cared about Kenny. Nobody would have known Kenny if it wasn't for Janae. It's because Janae is so likable that people were happy that she found love with Kenny. So for Kenny to be an imposter pretending to be interested in Black women who he knows he really wasn't, and doing it for the money, allegedly. If Kenny is that kind of person, that means that Kenny was preying on the insecurities and preying on preying on the insecurities of Black women, of dark-skinned women, because it has become very obvious to people that there is a way that you can leech and latch onto a dark-skinned person that can actually improve your life, your career, your money. Kenny made money from Janae. Kenny made money pretending to be in love with Janae. And it's also just like this massive power imbalance about how when a white person dates a Black person, people suddenly see them as a very down person, a very cool person, a very progressive person. People were overlooking the fact that Kenny was at the time following Donald Trump online. Kenny was interacting and liking posts of IDF. Kenny could potentially be problematic, but because he has a Black woman at the forefront of who he's dating, people were kind of putting that to the side because they were just happy to see romantic love being poured into a dark-skinned woman. So there was also another situation where a dark-skinned woman who was on Love Island UK called out her ex for being racist to her in a similar way to Janae and Kenny. The girl's name is Whitney and the guy's name is Lochan. And what I thought was interesting between Love Island UK versus Love Island US is how it exposes the racial dynamics of both places. When Whitney came forth about the racism that she had experienced with Lochan, there were Black British women in her comments telling her that they don't believe her and that they sided with Lochan. And I feel like racism in the UK is something that is like really swept under the rug. I feel like people don't want to accept that the UK has issues when it comes to anti-Blackness. And it was interesting to see how Whitney and Janae both called out their partners for being racist, and how in the US everyone stood by Janae. A lot of brands hit up Janae to tell Janae that they are so sorry she experienced that. People were writing for Janae, like, we believed her. She didn't have to show any evidence. But when it came to Whitney and Love Island UK, Whitney had to show text messages that she had received from Lochan calling her skin dirty. Whitney had to show evidence of Lochan being anti-Black for people to still gaslight her and tell her that it wasn't a big deal. One of the reasons I stopped watching Love Island UK is because of the racial dynamics. They treat Black women really terribly, and you can tell with the edits and how they just don't really show much of the storyline when it's a Black woman involved. And I'm somebody who's lived in the UK, and I know how the UK can be towards Black dark-skinned women, the UK can be really horrendous and very colorist. And reality TV show also teaches you that being fetishized is a good thing as a Black woman, that being fetishized as a dark-skinned woman is the closest thing you're going to ever have to love. Fetishization feels like love when you don't know what love feels like, because there are so many women who be like, oh, I went to Europe and they called me chocolate princess, chocolate girl, and I loved it. And it's like, babe, that is fetishization. A lot of people do not have the ability to vet when they are being fetishized and when they're actually being poured into. And these reality TV shows smear the lines of being able to do that, right? Because they don't actually show you a realistic conversation that happens between two people who are actually liking each other. I feel like the conversations of Love Island feel like this. So with my avocado and toast, I like salt and pepper on there. And the girl would be like, oh my God, I love salt and pepper on my avocado and toast. And the guy would be like, yeah, and like sometimes I even like toast the bread. And the girl would be like, oh my God, me too. Is he my soulmate? Like a lot of times the conversation feels very superficial. You rarely see on dating shows that they ask people questions around race and interrogate them around their relationship to race, or interrogate them about what their past really looks like when it comes to sexism or when it comes to colorism. Those conversations are always seen as unsexy. But the truth is that when you're dating someone and you're trusting them with your body and you're trusting them with your mind and your spirit, the vetting actually has to be the most intense. Like nobody, and that is always seen as uncool. Those vetting questions is always seen as boring, uncool, and like not letting love be fluid. Like I genuinely believe that these production shows intentionally put on people with racist past, colorist past, problematic past, because it creates this dynamic where Black women have to fight to be loved. And it's almost like, look, Janae is so hot, so talented, so funny that she was able to transcend the fact that she was with a racist. She was able to be with this guy who maybe didn't like her in the beginning and thought she was ugly and like worthless. She was able to find love, this idea like love trumps everything, which is why I really suggest straight women, you guys need to read All About Love. Please, I beg. That book will really break down that these things are not love. Like fetishization is not love. And I feel like this is the intentionality of reality TV show. They don't want to vet you, they don't want to protect you, and they don't want to keep you safe. And it's going to fall the hardest on dark-skinned women. And a perfect example of this was like the fact that Amaya's tweets or like posts came out recently, and it came out that Amaya is actually colorist and has said colorist things against dark-skinned people. I'll put up some of the things that she said. So this is one of the things that Amaya had reposted on her Facebook. And I'm just summarizing it, but it says light-skinned girls got the best hair. Brown-skinned girls do anything for likes, always wear weaves. And then it says dark-skinned girls will F all of your bros on the staircase, do anything for money. Like just very disgusting things. People are saying that she was 14 or 15 years old. But I also have to remind y'all that there are dark-skinned girls who are 14 or 15 years old who also had to hear and see people sharing these things. This is literally very dehumanizing. She also has a post saying, your mom's face when you introduce her to your Black boyfriend, #Thanksgiving with Hispanics, which I think is also interesting to observe because she clearly, if you write this, you do not see yourself as Black. That is why there is a division between Hispanic and being Black. But people are so adamant about calling Amaya Black. And another thing that kind of also annoyed me about this whole conversation was people were like, as soon as Kenny did Janae wrong, people were like, oh, the reason that Kenny did Janae wrong was because Kenny hasn't come to terms with the fact that he's Black, and he's denying that, and then that's why he hates Janae. And people were saying like, oh, Kenny's in denial about being Black. And I only heard that when they broke up. And I think it's interesting that when Kenny made a mistake, suddenly Kenny's Black. Kenny's a Black man now that he did Janae dirty. And it's like, no, he's not. He doesn't have Black parents. He's not Black. He's literally a non-Black Hispanic person. And it's also interesting to me because Amaya and Kenny look like they're both the same kind of, they look like they'd be siblings in my eyes. Like to me, I didn't see Amaya as Black, but Amaya was immediately pushed to the front as a Black woman. And I just think it's also because of gender, like because of Amaya is a woman. People want to see her as a Black woman because they want any and every Black woman to win to any regard. If you're 1/4 Black, they'll be like, please, we need something, because they're so starved for representation. And also like having low racial self-worth will have you seeing people who don't look like you looking like as your representation. But Amaya is literally colorist and has never seen herself as these other Black folks, like, which is why you can feel very comfortable to retweet and say some of these things. But in my mind, I'm like, how do they miss that? Like, how did 15-year-olds on TikTok find her post, but the people who are working for Love Island and getting paid a full-time salary didn't see that? Y'all had to have seen these things. You had to have known what was going on, but you chose to continue with it anyway because you felt like it would add more spice to the story. And it also feels really similar if you guys ever watched Married at First Sight, another dating show that's horrendous, especially towards Black dark-skinned women. And there was a situation with Chris and Paige, and how he was just like so abusive to her, and the staff like allowed those things to happen and didn't really intervene until it got like super really bad, but they should have intervened earlier. You know, these are the ways that people fail Black women. Like, I've seen reality TV shows where literally the men are actively lying about their life, saying that they do something that they don't do, which could easily be checked if you had people who vetted, but you don't vet for Black women. You set them up to be humiliated. That is the humiliation ritual. You want Black women to be embarrassed publicly, privately of course, but publicly is so important so that it teaches you to even feel foolish for thinking that you could be loved in any other way than what you see. And like, some people are really struggling to understand Kenny can be racist and be in a relationship with Janae. But if you grew up in the South and you've walked around Southern towns, I'm talking about you walk around and you'll see somebody catcalling you and they'll have a Confederate flag on the back of their truck. You know that it's not strange that you can be romantically or sexually attracted to someone and hate their race. Like, those two things actually make a lot of sense if you, in my opinion, grew up in the South or grew up around people who fetishize people. Once again, fetishization will feel like love if you don't know what love feels like. Yeah, it's like really unfortunate, and I can't imagine the spiritual and psychological effects dating someone and being intimate with somebody who hates you can feel like. But I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of Black women are not, like, this is something that a lot of Black women have experienced. Like, if you've dated somebody who's colorist, if you date somebody who's texturist, if you date somebody who doesn't like who doesn't like you because of your complexion or because of your hair, these are all dating people who hate you. But the only difference is that Kenny had all three of them. This is the color, the hair, the everything. Like, so those things can really do something to your psyche. Like, it will do something to your self-worth. And I feel so bad for Janae, and I really hope that she's able to, be poured into and be believed and not be gaslit in these moments, and just kind of able to assess, because these shows don't allow you to properly vet your own people. Because I think that people feel like there's this idea that like love trumps everything. Like, love is so powerful that it can fight racism. Love is so powerful that it can fight colorism. And what happens is that women just end up shrinking themselves and hurting themselves and shriveling themselves more and more to be seen as desirable to a man. It is often a woman that has to deal with all of these things that someone does not like about her to be able to be in a relationship with another person. So it's really important to decenter romantic love as the most important thing in your life, because if you see that as the most important thing in your life, you're going to be doing things outside of yourself to get that. And that's not how it works. Romantic love isn't the only way you can experience care in this world, and it shouldn't be the only way. Like, I would love a reality TV show that's about having friends and like who America's Next Top Friend, and like you do like all these like, you put them in all these situations and like you do all these scenarios where you're like fighting to see who's like a good friend or something. Like, we need more of that, but we're not going to have that. But, just pushing us to remind ourselves that this watching these shows, I'm sure, has a very similar reaction on your body to watching a horror movie, because it is horrific. Dating as a Black woman is horrific, and you have to really protect yourself, because if not, you're going to have yourself feeling out of your body. And I feel like that's also why Love Island fans are a little bit out there and like kind of scary, because they're fighting for this like it's themselves. Like, I feel like it does this thing where you start to see yourself as these girls. Like, I am Olandria, I am Nick, I am Shelly, I am Jen. It's like, do you know what I mean? Relax a little bit. You're still you. This is still a curated space, and it's important to find your center. So yeah, if you made it to the end, tell me what you like about my makeup. Guys, I'm so annoyed. This is actually my second time filming this video. I filmed this whole video and I forgot to hit record. 20 minutes down the drain. So I really hope I was able to like, sound interesting and sound like excited, but the first draft I was really eating, so please bear with me if I seem slightly kind of annoyed or rushed or flustered in this video. This is my second time doing a 20-minute video. So thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.